Hello again and welcome back to our video advent calendar. We're now on day 16. I wonder, have you seen them all? Have you watched the video every day? Well, if you've missed any, you should be able to find them on this link. So feel free to watch them, or if you watch them once, watch them again. But anyway, after 3, I want you to shout Christmas, and I hope you enjoy the talk. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Enjoy.
Okay, another day nearer Christmas. I want to tell you a little bit about one of the Christmases I had. At the time I was probably about the age of one of my daughters, and I was living in Austria, which for those of you who don't know is a country about 1,000 miles away. And this particular Christmas, I had visitors coming. My family, my uncle, aunt and 3 cousins were going to visit from Wales, and they're going to see me in Austria. Well, I was very excited, and you have to understand, back then we had no smartphones, we had no Zoom, you couldn't FaceTime with anyone. You could perhaps ring them, but it would cost a lot of money, but you'd hear their voices, but nothing more. So I hadn't seen these people for about a year and a half. I was really looking forward to it. And they crossed by the ferry, the ship, across the channel, and then they drove for 14 hours straight through to see us in Austria. I think it even snowed that Christmas as well. Well, it was a lovely Christmas, but can you imagine if they'd arrived all that way, 14 hours by car, and then they booked into a little hotel, maybe in a village nearby, and I just hadn't bothered to see them? Can you imagine that? That'd be weird, wouldn't it? Very, very strange thing to do. Of course, I didn't do that. They came and stayed with us. But I want to read you a story from the Bible. And I'm thinking here particularly a book from Matthew, chapter 2. Now, we know that the wise men came from a long way away. Some people at times they're called kings. We're called the wise men, magi. And they came to Jerusalem because they knew a new king was about to be born. Or indeed had been born. So they went to the palace of Herod. And there Herod was asked by them, this is in Matthew chapter 2, they asked the king, "Where is he who has been born king of the Jews?" Well, Herod didn't like that because he was the king of the Jews, he thought, and he didn't want any other one. So he called together, and this is in verse 3, "When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And he got together all the chief priests and scribes of the people." So the chief priests and scribes are the religious people, they're the people who read the Bible. And he asked them where the Christ was to be born. Where's Jesus going to be born? And they told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it is written by the prophet, and you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." They were spot on. The chief priests and the scribes, they knew their Bibles, they knew the prophecy, they knew that God had said long before Jesus was born that one day he'd send a king. He'd be in the line of King David from the town of Bethlehem. They spot on. They knew exactly where the Messiah was going to come from, Bethlehem. Now, you probably won't know this, but you know Jerusalem and Bethlehem aren't far apart. They're only about 5 miles. You could easily walk there. They didn't have cars back then, but you could easily walk there. It was good roads between the 2 cities. Quite easy to get there. But you know, here's the amazing thing. The wise men, they went off looking for Jesus in Bethlehem. But we don't read anywhere that the chief priests or the scribes went looking for Jesus. Even though it was so close. I talked about my family coming all that long distance, how ridiculous it would be if they just let them stay a little short while away and not bother going to see them. They couldn't be bothered to even bother going to see if it was true. They'd seen the wise men come from afar. They'd seen that they would have been exotically clothed. They would have had strange clothing on. They talked about a sign in the heavens. And yet, despite hearing all that, they didn't go look for Jesus. They didn't want to know. What a strange thing to do. But what about you? Because you're not a chief priest or a scribe, but you've come to church, perhaps. You've heard the Bible. You've heard what God has said about Jesus. Have you come to Jesus? I want to read you a verse from Isaiah chapter 55, and it's verse 6. It just says this: "Seek the Lord while he may be found. Call upon him while he is near." This Christmas, are you going to be like the wise men? You're going to go and seek Jesus to make him Lord of your life, ask him to come into your heart? Or are you going to be like the chief priests who knew their Bible, they'd read it, they'd heard the promises of God, but they couldn't be bothered to go and look for Jesus? I pray that this Christmas you might seek Jesus for yourselves.
And they call his name Jesus.